Hey there folks, we're headed to the slave pens today. I'm not going to show every single dungeon I did on the way up, the heroic versions will no doubt be more interesting. But I will cover some focal points. In the last 2 episodes we saw some very raw, very new to TBC gameplay. I'm still learning, and I suspect I always will be, but for this run we'll be looking at, we've got Steady Shot and Aspect of the Viper. A bit more experience, but not enough to be really fluid just yet. Nevertheless, we shall do our best, as always, to support our group. We'll also be joining a different leveling group for the run, but first we've got to make the run there through Zangarmarsh, and have a chuckle or two along the way. So without further ado, enjoy.
Well, that's a pain in the ass. Yeah, it slides over. We just moved before it slid over.
Oh yeah. Move before the slide. Just eat it. Oh, we just saw somebody else eat it.
Alright,
Down to slave pens.
Yeah, the water's all
It
shallow.
landed on the face of the water and died.
That's all shallow.
Oh no, it's too shallow. The water's shallow. That's what it is.
Right here's
I
the
need to follow Worth now.
right here's the spot where you can land probably.
A little ahead of you over here. Oh, that's right. I remember the big reward for holding the 2 towers here was we got an extra graveyard. Yes, we do. Yeah, it's actually a little bit of a tight swim without underwater breathing.
This is my ring.
Oh, yes. Oh, not the fish.
My god, I just got another swarm of fish. Okay, let's kill all these fish. Well, they don't do shit.
Right then, enough of this silliness. I suppose now is as good a time as any to talk about the rotation I've gravitated towards. That way we have proper context for the mistakes I make in this episode. Or I suppose I should put rotation in quotation marks, because it's more so just a set of priorities, of rules, that I've come to follow. This isn't necessarily ideal, I'm only stating what felt the most natural for me, and what I've come to do. Top priority is keeping both auto attacks on cooldown. Auto shot and auto attack, Raptor Strike with the latter if possible. Second, cast Steady Shot. Usually there's a bit of time after Steady Shot is cast, but before either of our auto attacks come off cooldown again, when there isn't enough time to cast a second Steady Shot, but there is enough time to fire off a multi-shot or an arcane shot. Those abilities take precedence in this situation. Multi-shot and arcane shot are actually more powerful than Steady Shot in this initial phase of the Burning Crusade. Why don't we fire them over Steady Shot then? Well, the reason is because they are instant or near instant, but the global cooldown they cause will prevent you from getting a Steady Shot off between auto shots. By firing multi-shot or arcane shot after a Steady Shot, it's possible to squeeze both between just 2 auto shots under normal circumstances. I say under normal circumstances because haste actually has a rather significant effect on our rotation in TBC. Steady Shot is cast much faster than aimed shot. So unlike in vanilla where you could kinda keep using aimed shot during rapid fire and quick shots and it wouldn't really affect anything, here in the Burning Crusade the global cooldown may only allow for 1 shot between auto shots, if that. So maybe you only get to fire either a Steady Shot or a multi-shot between auto shots. And if you're weaving on top of that, you only arcane shot at the moment you take that tiny little step towards the enemy to get a Raptor Strike or auto attack off. So in essence, we have different rotations, quote unquote, depending on how much haste we have at any given time. It's kinda complicated, huh? I was linked some rather interesting graphs by Asian Clark Kent in the Ravager Den, which I've pinned in the Hunter Stuff channel. Many thanks for that, Asian Clark Kent. The graphs pertain to the different rotations we might have, and apparently what I described a moment ago is something called the short French rotation, something I stumbled across by accident in my experimentation. I mean, there are more details to the short French rotation than the little list of priorities I described, but for simplicity's sake, it's almost the same thing. But it's very similar. By the way, I don't yet realize exactly how haste impacts our rotation as of this Slave Pens run. So you'll see some very janky burst rotations with rapid fire. Be mindful of this so you see how we might improve. According to the aforementioned resource, that rotation, the short French rotation, is only ever relevant for survival hunters without the 20% haste deep in the Beast Mastery tree, which is my situation. The normal French rotation for Beast Mastery hunters or survival hunters with quick shots or Dragon Spine trophy procs active is exactly as described, but it notably delays auto shots slightly in order to get additional shots off, such as multi-shot following a steady shot. With that haste, it will clip the next auto shot slightly. All of these rotations revolve around the global cooldown and how haste affects our casts. I'll link this in the description too, but if you're in the Ravden, again, you'll find it pinned in the Hunter Stuff channel. I highly suggest giving it a look, since it outlines very clearly the different levels of haste and how our rotation might look under those circumstances. The graphs may seem a bit convoluted, but that's because our rotation, quote-unquote, in the Burning Crusade is convoluted. It's my hope that by stating what it is we're meant to be doing, or as close to it as I understand it this time, and drawing attention to my successes and failures as I level to 70, all of this becomes easier to understand for you, my friends and colleagues. Anyway, regarding some extra stuff, Kill Command is a factor past level 66, but it isn't on the GCD, so it's a use when possible thing. I've tried macroing it with Steady Shot, but it's really janky. Maybe it'd go nice with something instant, like Arcane Shot, perhaps in our cast exclamation point auto shot, or melee swing macros. There's also aspect swapping, and for the sake of getting it out there, so far I've enjoyed keeping Hawk up indefinitely at high mana, or until I get a quick shots proc at medium to low mana, under which circumstances I like to swap to Viper after getting that quick shots proc. If out of mana entirely, keeping Viper up until combat ends is comfortable. Presumably, keeping Hawk up forever is ideal for damage, and our mana should be regenerated via consumables and support abilities, like Judgment of Wisdom or Mana Spring Totem. For my fellow casuals, though, that's what I've been trying to get in the habit of doing in terms of aspect swapping. Finally, I'll reiterate, as we established in prior episodes, aimed shot now puts your auto attacks on cooldown for a fairly long time after being fired. It might seem nice to precast, but really it's only useful if you need to cripple healing you anticipate the enemy will receive. And maybe it would also prove useful as one of the 3 attacks we're allowed during Misdirection, the level 70 skill that allows us to divert the threat we generate for our next 3 attacks to a target of our choosing. Beyond that, aimed shot is not a factor at all that should be considered for a PvE rotation. I think that's about everything I wanted to touch on regarding our rotation for this episode. Let's get into some action commentary now. I guess I should start by introducing my group. We've got Cinders and Tardigrade here. They too have been left behind by some members of their leveling group. They are a tank and healer combo, one playing a shaman, the other playing a druid. And we've also got ourselves a couple of pugs, Victorious and an Asabi. Unfortunately, my survival abilities will not really complement this group too well because, as you may recall, survival hunters buff the physical damage of our friends, and our group is comprised mostly of spellcasting. But that doesn't mean we can't support everyone by using frost traps and being generally pleasant company. Because moral support is a factor, and we should all be as happy as we possibly can be, despite any shenanigans that may or may not be going on in the real world, because there is an awful lot to be concerned about, but there's also a lot to be thankful for. And we should all count our blessings, and I'm getting on a tangent here. Let's check out the next trash pack here. We're trying to get a Bladestorm proc. We didn't get any procs on the last pack, but I am determined to use it somewhere in the slave pens, and if anywhere, these Bogsdrock pulls are the place to use it, because there are 6 of these crab people, and here we go. We got a Bladestorm proc, and we'll just be spinning to winning here. Hopefully. As you can see from the details meter on the side, we're mostly just evening out with what we were doing before, maybe even a little less. So again, the Ravager does not appear to be particularly useful in TBC. I'm very sad to say. I'm very sad to reiterate. But it is fun, so we may be seeing a little bit more of it on our way up to 70. Now that there are less targets left, I'm going to swap back to range and finish these targets off in a much more traditional way. Next, we'll fire off a Wyvern Sting on the only elite in the next pack. because the slaves like to run away if we kill the elite first, and they are XP and rep. A bit of a multi-shot fail there. I accidentally chained it to the sleeping target, but all is well. We'll simply hold on to it while we focus on the slaves. I don't know why they give reputation when killed. Like, shouldn't it be either experience or rep? Like, maybe you free them and you gain reputation, but if you kill them you get experience? But no, there are no perks to setting them free. As you could see, we accidentally let one go right here, because I wasn't paying total attention and finished off the elite first. And we get nothing for it. Nothing. The Cenarian expedition is just a bit twisted, don't you think? Well, anyway, we'll be seeing a lot more of Wyvern Sting and Freezing Trap and Frost Trap and other kinds of stuff like that, because this group prefers CC. Our guildies prefer some CC and chain pulls and stuff like that for efficiency's sake. And as survival, we do have a respectable amount of crowd control. Although it seems the enemies do as well, as we've been sent running in fear. Our pet was fairly close to the enemies there, the next pack of mobs, but we thankfully made it out of there without any ass pulls. After a drink, I get up to Raptor Strike, the first thing I see. The enemy elite is on my tank, and this time we will not make the same mistake. We will kill the slaves first, because regardless of how screwed up that is, we need the XP, we need the rep. Don't blame me, blame the Cenarian Circle for offering rep for killing them. Anyway, now that they're all dead, we can move on to finishing off this elite with a shock combo and a melee swing. This time we'll mix things up a bit. Wyvern Sting is up, but I'm going to Freezing Trap that elite right there, and now we can go ahead and get on the slaves without breaking the trap with Fire Breath, because that would be really silly. They're going down fairly quickly, and my range on that final target back there is certainly helping. We were the only one in range of that thing, so it was important that we focused on that one. Or at least did so whenever we couldn't melee whatever was in our face. Right there you saw a precast aim shot on the Freezing Trap target, which again, seems like a good idea, even after steady shot, but it causes that delay we established exists. I suppose something has to nerf me, because I have a tendency to pull threat otherwise. And where Takanu could be just the slightest bit apoplectic about my constant threat shenanigans, understandably so, Tardigrade views it as an opportunity to better his tanking skills, because even though there are no idiots out there quite like me, it's best to be prepared for whatever the unexpected might be. To expect the unexpected. As we move on to the room where the first boss is, a nice little melee shot right there, via a mouse over multi off the secondary target. I tell you, those multi-chains never quite get old, they're a lot of fun to do. These guys have a Rain of Fire cast, it seems, so that's pretty convenient. If we don't interrupt them and simply stand out of the Rain of Fire, then we can let them cast and do absolutely nothing while we murder them. Of course, that was then, and this is now on the next pack, where we've put one target to sleep with a Wyvern Sting. We've got the tree boys out and about and dead. And there's the Rain of Fire that we were talking about. We have been crippled, so we can't really move away too well, but we'll try to move away enough that we can get an auto shot off or something. Of course, it's a bit difficult with both of these, the remaining targets on me. If I step away just a little bit though, I can maybe get a multi-shot off. Works like a charm. We don't really need deterrence anymore now that Cripple has fallen off, but it helped a little bit there. I've had a drink before the next pack, which was pulled back with the Fairy Fire Feral version, which our tank used. I've swapped back to Aspect of the Hawk since I'm very good on mana right now. Our tank has taunted the Skull back, which enables us to position for some weaving, at least for a moment, and we have to go on to the next couple of targets. I have Feign Death up at the moment, but I'm just going to wing clip these guys and move away from them. Seems Skull wasn't wing clipped, but that got taken care of, and now our tank can hit them from the back while I stutter step away from them, and move in very briefly to weave when given the chance, or when prudent, because there is a such thing as the auto attack cooldown. On this next one, I've been tasked with freezing a target, but I've also got a Wyvern Sting, so I'll put that one in the back to sleep. And I'll try to get this other mob out of the clump so I can trap it, but the tank is holding onto them very firmly right now. Here comes the cross, and there it goes, but Fire Breath broke it. It was up at the time that it tripped the trap, and therefore it didn't stay frozen because it was on fire. You know, dragon hooks are fun. They're flappy and they breathe fire, and if nothing else, they have me paying much more attention to my pet's positioning and cooldowns and the timing of its attacks. we've been alternating between melee and ranged, but the triangle is the only target left. It's casting, so I'm moving away while it's casting because it's just going to stand there. I resisted the cripple, no doubt sure-footed in action, and that leaves only the first boss for us to kill. He is one of those lost ones, and if you happen to do any questing in Zangarmarsh, then you may have heard that some of these folks are willingly working with the Naga and are not enslaved. But that's another story for another time. Right now we're focusing on weaving as best we can without pulling threat. I've already used my Feign Death, so that's out of the question. But our tank's just going to have to handle it. And in the meantime, I'm just going to mouse over pet attack every totem that I see pop up. Like that one. A bit too slow on the draw there. Or at least my pet was too slow in getting there, so Blizzard, fix your pet paving, please. Tardigrade has the boss under control once again, so we're going back to finding that minimum range and attempting to weave here. Or at least he did have it under control for a moment, and now he's back onto me. But he's almost dead, and Tardigrade once again has him, so I suppose it doesn't matter. We're not moving on just yet, that is, we're not moving up the ramp just yet. There is another pack of enemies in the back corner of the room, and we want them dead. I'm going to try to get something in the trap here, and it turns out it was the cross, so that's a thing. Anyway, did you notice that I used the delay on aim shot to walk up to the boss and get in range for weaving? That might have been a good use of aim shot. I'm not really sure, but at least I did something with the delay, even if I still don't quite realize it's happening, because I'm observant about some things and not so observant about others. I was certainly a bit too quick on the initial Feign Death too. Remember, the way taunt works is the tank gets your threat level and then needs to add his own on top in order to keep aggro after the taunt ends. And maybe he got the threat from the aim shot, I'm not sure, it was pretty close. But the point is, I could have fired off a couple more shots during the taunt itself. In addition, I'm still using that very vanilla movement style when weaving. Anyway, we've moved on up this ramp, and we're going to follow it wherever this goes. Once again, we have two targets on us, but by stutter stepping back strategically and stepping in just a moment to get that melee swing off before stepping back once again, we can kill these guys and move a bit more in the direction that we want to go. Here I'm also trying something a bit interesting. If you read the tooltip for Steady Shot, you may notice that it deals higher damage to dazed targets. But it's definitely not worth the global cooldown in the situation that I just used it to apply Concussive Shot in order to make the next Steady Shot more effective. Still, I was experimenting at this time, and it's important to experiment so you can feel out what's best and what's not. Like all the frost traps we got going on. I have an empowered explosive trap, so I really should be using that as much as possible. And if one of these shamans could drop an Earthbind totem, I should kindly ask one of them to do so. And that way I could use some more explosive firepower on these folks. But hey, these frost traps just so happened to work out for this particular dungeon run that we did, and it probably saved them totems. I'm not sure exactly what sorts of totems they prefer. If there's anything useful in the earth totem category for caster or healer shamans. And either way, as a caster or healer, they're probably not even close enough to drop the Earthbind totem where it'll really matter. Whereas I am rather close, and I can drop these frost traps as much as I want. Still, it would help to anticipate the next pack being pulled and drop frost traps before they are ever pulled. Because that trap cooldown could come off in the middle of the pack, and if that happens, I can use my explosive trap to help in finishing off the pack. Which would be a lot of mana, come to think of it, but hey, we've got Aspect of the Viper, and I do not mind spamming drinks in TBC. As long as it means we can do more stuff on the next trash pack, all is well. If we were rapidly chain pulling, I might have second guesses about such a strategy. But there are more CC-oriented strategies with preemptive traps to consider, such as dropping a freezing trap for one thing and using a frost trap for the other things. Or perhaps even freezing two targets, and between that and Wyvern Sting, you can control a lot of targets all at once, and all on your own too. We'll be seeing some of that later in the Mana Tombs. But for now, things are still a bit rocky, with me trying to fire out a Wyvern before I'm in range, and also breaking my own Wyvern with an auto shot. No way that's going to stay trapped either with the poison component of the Wyvern Sting going. There was a little squirrel brain moment for you right there in the slave pens. And it seems we're standing in a hurricane right now, or a lightning cloud. but we can't really move out of it because we were entangled, but I'm still not going to move out of it because I'm busy casting things. Cinders can handle it, I have complete faith in her, and if there's any complaint about that, then tough cookies. This last trash pack that we're killing right now is really the only one that we had to kill. It's the only one in our way, but we wanted to kill everything for the sake of experience. Plus there's a quest-related NPC at the top of this here ramp, which we have laid a frost trap on, and used as a bit of a choke point to hold these enemies exactly, or to funnel these enemies exactly where we want them, which is through a frost trap, to slow them down and be as inconvenient as possible. I rushed over here to the next enemies because we do have a few seconds remaining on the badge of the Swarm Guard, so it was imperative that we use those up on some target that needed killing, that needed to be shot. My group was not far behind me, and that means that I have support while I'm stutter-stepping away from these things and trying to weave on them at the same time. I'm going to weave through this thing because we need to move in this direction. And I could have circle-strafed around it and weaved that way. Similarly to what we saw on Fairlina when I weaved on her and then there was a rain of fire where I was, so I relocated back to range at an entirely different position. But no, I just walked straight through it, and I guess that works too, but it doesn't help kill the thing any faster. I've still got my Jam Kabar up, so I'm going to use it right here. We might as well, because sure, we could kill the boss up ahead next, but instead, what I'm thinking, we're going to fight that trash pack next, the one on the right, the one full of Naga, and the Coil Fang Ray with the psychic horror that it likes to spit out on people. You know, I'm awfully jealous that their pets get to CC things and make them run off at the speed of light, and we might see that here in a minute. I've shimmied a bit to the left to make sure that the right target gets in that trap. But yeah, those Coil Fang Rays can, they can fear things, and their fear also gives a speed boost, but it only lasts a few seconds, so I guess that's an interesting mechanic. A sprint plus a fear. I can see the logic behind it. You know, I like that combination. I don't think we've seen it again since TBC. Or at least, I don't recall seeing it. Anyway, we've blown through the Wyvern Stung target, we've just annihilated the freezing trapped target, and all that's left is the hibernated Coil Fang Ray, which is casting its psychic horror now, and I'm not sure it even got off. It was bashed in time. A very nice reaction time from Tardigrade, because that cast time is really fast, much like the fears on the Sethic Prophets in Sethic Halls. But again, that's another story for another time. We're here on another boss, and I'm going to be trying to weave, but there's so much stuff to the rotation, and I'm still not sure of myself on how to approach all this stuff yet. What I do understand is that because melee weaving only takes a moment in TBC, an instant even, it should be doable during rapid fire, and that's what I'm trying to do here, or that's what I tried to do while rapid fire was up. And indeed it's possible, but that attempt was pretty janky, and we're gonna have to try again to flush it out. We're gonna have to learn our way around that rotation. I'm also spending a bit too much time weaving and not quite getting enough time to steady shot between my auto shots off. And I'm also casting steady shot a bit too soon, thinking my auto will go off, but it does not. It's the little things you have to notice and fix for next time. And although we'll be only seeing this one Slave Pens run today, there will be many next times for me, because it takes hundreds of, well, maybe not hundreds, but it takes many runs to level from 60 to 70 if we're going purely off dungeon grinding. So by the time we do the Mana Tombs, you'll find that we have improved. And after that, yet more. Until then, we'll be CCing only 2 targets at a time, I'm sorry to say. But hey, that just means more multi-shot fodder, like the one we just fired out. So like I said, it never gets old, at least for me. You gotta find that right angle, the right target to chain off of. It's an interesting little mini-game for how mobs can be spread out in these dungeons, how that can be positioned. And I suppose we'll not be doing purely dungeon grinding. I mean, there are some quests in Nagrand that are not particularly story-focused, that I intend to do at some point, and we'll have a look at how that went, I suppose. But at 70, I want to come back and do a whole bunch of quests in Outland, because it's like I said in the Naxxramas episode, I like the lore, I like the game, and it's interesting, And it is something of an exaggeration when folks are like, oh, it's just kill this, collect that. No, there is a decent mixture of various quests, and There are some rather iconic ones. If not in general, then at least for me. And on top of that, much like with dungeons, and we'll see more of this in Heroics, I'm sure, it's kind of like the developer versus the player. What has Blizzard designed in order for us to overcome? In that regard, I find the machinations of humanity to be more intriguing than humanity itself. It's also part of the reason I don't really enjoy PvP. The other reason because I tend to be violently enraged whenever I am faced with any enemies whatsoever, and it's best that I keep my ire focused on raid bosses, because, well, if I don't, then you saw what happened to the botter population on Light's Hope. We put 2 gold-selling organizations completely out of business out there, and hell, I was up for 72 hours straight on more than one occasion just searching through the logs and uncovering things, digging up trouble, and then burying it in the ground where it belongs. You see? So since I'm playing on a faction on this game, that ire is now somewhat directed towards the Horde. It's no offense to my Horde friends. I love and respect all of you. It's just, I've got issues, okay? I get a bit too intense, and I need to focus my efforts on being as kind as possible, because as Nightwish said, it's easy to what do they say? It's hard to light a candle, easy to curse the dark instead. You guys remember that album? Anyway, I suppose that raises the question of why I'm on a PvP server in that case. And indeed, we do run into trouble with the Horde on more than one occasion, but I do enjoy the atmosphere that a PvP server creates. It's tense, it's immersive, even if I don't enjoy the PvP itself. Or I guess that's incorrect. I have done plenty of PvP in the past, and I've dabbled in the arena and all that. It's just I get too into it, and I feel like I could waste a whole day just BGing or starting trouble in the open world, and I don't want to do that. I would rather do anything else. But there are certain occasions where it's totally unavoidable. Like the other day in Netherstorm, I was out mining, and this I don't know if it's intentional or not, but the guards at Area 52 apparently don't like to interfere with any sort of PvP whatsoever. They will not keep the peace in their own town. So some hunter was bugging me, like, the whole sending the Ravager in, steady shot, this and that, and I'm on a flying mount, so I just fly to the other side of town to try to vendor my stuff before getting back on a mining path. And this guy follows me. So since he won't leave well enough alone, and he's just blown bestial wrath on someone on a flying mount, I get off and I unload on him, and suddenly everyone in Area 52 is dead. But after that I went back on my mining path and left well enough alone. But it was all this one guy. And, it wasn't just me, obviously, unloading on everyone in town. That would obviously result in my death. But it seems this hunter had provoked the ire of a whole bunch of other Alliance players who joined in the genocide that only lasted about 30 seconds or so. So it wasn't too distracting, and I was able to get back on track. I tell you, there may not be enough time in the day, but part of it is time management. And I've got to stay focused on the things that I want to do as opposed to the things that I'm compelled to do, or rather the things I feel like doing. And that way I get more done, and I can do my mining path, and I can make my turbo engineering flyer, which still isn't made yet, but I'll get on it, I'll get to it, and I can get all the questing done, and I can do IRL stuff, and I can edit these episodes, and I can step outside and go for a little walk. And I could do the other stuff that I need to do, that needs doing. But I'm really not very good at time management, and I'm still working on it. I'm sure it would help if I had a little bit more force of will at any given time. That spread a tad thin given my issues. But of course what matters is that I don't let that stop me. I may slow down, I may falter, but I do not stop. There are no brakes on the Rizaya train. I'm sorry, I went on a long tangent there, didn't I? What have we been doing in the meantime? Well, we just unloaded on these box trucks. We got a nice little Ravager proc. We're not doing any Blade Storms right now because now there are less than a desirable number of targets than we should Blade Storm on. And we're almost at the final boss after a couple more trash packs. And there's another quest mob up ahead too. He's actually a helpful one. He'll buff us if we talk to him after letting him out of the cage. But first, we've got to get through these Nagas. I've put one to sleep, or attempted to. It was broken immediately because it was in the clump, so it had to be swiped out of its sleep. Awoken from its slumber by a mighty bear. And we're attempting to weave while also firing off auto shots, multi-shots, arcane shots. Anything other than a steady shot, and maybe even a steady shot too if I get the opportunity. You know, even if something is on me, if I start casting steady shot between its auto attacks, I'm likely enough to get it off. These things are almost dead, so I'm going to fire off one more auto shot, a multi-shot, and go dance around this guy until he's dead. Kind of like dancing until you're dead, but it happens to your enemy, and not you. I've placed a frost trap there preemptively, waiting for the enemies to spawn. And this might have been a better time to use that wyvern sting rather than on the prior pack, but it's a lesson for next time. I've got one thing on me, but I am at range enough that I can keep firing shots on something, and swing on something else between those shots. I'm not putting out quite as many steady shots as I should though, because I need to move away from these things. I need to keep moving. And the steady shots are important. We should probably try not to pull threat so often in order to use it better, because clearly we do a lot more when steady shot is available. This quest mob is rescued, so we'll talk to him, get the Mark of Bite. It does not stack with Mark of the Wild, so I'll just use my normal aspect. And now let's kill the final boss. This big guy has a lot of nature damage, which is what the buff is for. And I'm not entirely certain of his mechanics. Maybe he has a frontal cone, so you might see me try to move over to the left a little bit on occasion if I happen to pull threat. But we'll take that as it comes. Right now we're weaving as best we can. We've just pulled threats, so I've used Feign Death, and now I'm going into Jamgobar and Rapid Fire. Maybe a bit soon on the Rapid Fire. As you can see, we've got so much haste at the moment that we can only get the one steady shot off and not really anything else. So realizing that much at least, I fire off the multi-shot by itself before I go back to my normal 1-1 steady shot, auto shot. Aggro's pretty janky right now. It might be on me, it might be on our tank, and Feign Death ain't up yet. It will be in just a few seconds, but my focus is on practicing this rotation that I need to learn. So I wind up moving a bit further into melee range than I really needed to. And I'm getting better about the quicker melees, but it should only be a twitch forward. I should not even need to strafe out. Hell, I should try backpedaling at some point, just to see if that works any better. But it'll have to be on a living target, because this one is now dead. And that means we're done here. No bonus footage for this one. I'll just say we're headed into the Mana Tombs next, or maybe some Amnesia, because I have been itching to do another custom story. And I've even figured out how to get it to work in VR, which could be a really unique and interesting experience. And Amnesia's a classic, I can't not go back to it. Sorry, topic for another time. Farewell for now, friends. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.